specific, and how do you know when the trickster is operating in you? How do you know when it's not doing what it needs to be doing in you? That is getting very practical in terms of marks of this kind of thing. And I've come to believe that it is enormously important for you to have the trickster really online working for you in your psyche. And let me just say in advance why I think that's the case. Because if you do not have the trickster really accepted in your psyche and working well, you are going to over-idealize too many people. You're going to be too reverent. You're going to be hyper-reverent, hyper-idealizing of all sorts of people. And you know what that ends up being? That's a giving away of your power. So if you feel weak and impotent, I will guarantee you the trickster is not functioning well enough in a positive way in your psyche, because you're giving away your power in idealizations, in idealizing projections, and idealizing transferences. So it's not that you don't need appropriate idealizing transferences, you do. And there's another side to the pathology of the trickster, that is when the trickster is on full automatic. When it is on, I see you don't know about Uzis. When the trickster is on full automatic and you pull the trigger, it just goes over and shoots everything, you know, including my legs, blows my legs off, you see. And so some of you here, I know some of you have had a little problem with the trickster being on full automatic. So if you tend to have a little problem with self-esteem, it may also be that the trickster is de-idealizing, but is de-idealizing yourself right out of existence. See? And so we will get into that a lot this afternoon, because this thing needs to shoot the right things. and the only appropriate target for the trickster's firepower is grandiosity. Pathological, infantile grandiosity. And when it starts getting into good muscle and good structure, you need to turn it off. See. So we will get into that a lot this afternoon. If that's okay with you, that's how we'll proceed. Any comments, questions about that? Well, let me just context this just a bit before we get into this. As many of you already know, I have been working on trying to develop a understanding of the deep structures of the archetypal self, which are an understanding which is consistent with Jung's work, and which does not try to do something else other than what Jung did. I understand my work is merely trying to stand on Jung's own research and trying to carry his research forward in a way that is as faithful to his meta-theoretical and meta-psychological vision as is possible. Utilizing the things that we have access today that he did not have access to. There is a tremendous amount of this research that we have available to us today in anthropology and history of religions and comparative psychoanalytic theory that Jung did not have. So I'd like to say to Jungian people interested in Jungian psychology that I disagree with those people that turn the collected works into the Black Bible. It's not a Bible. It is a source of research information of a scientific psychoanalytic theory. To turn it into a dogma means you have to shut down all further research. So what I'd like to say is what we're trying to engage in here is a continuation of Jung's own approach to the psychology of the archetypes of the deep structures of the human self. And that, I think, if you know anything about the different people in the fields, that differentiates me from a number of people in contemporary thought who are doing something else other than Jung's understanding of the collective unconscious and the objective psyche. Okay, let me read you just a few excerpts from the thousands and thousands of trickster tales. First of all, some of you have studied this material. What are some of the most popular figures in Native American mythology that represent this trickster? Give me some names. Coyote is the one that we know a lot. Can you think of others? Raven. We have Raven here today. Dan Raven. And he is one that we have to thank for this shit happens shirt. This is in the sector of the magician, which the magician is not functioning very well. But who else besides Coyote and Raven? Rabbit. It's very interesting to know that the Brer Rabbit stories come from that same tradition as hare. See, any others?
Shakespearean fool.
Yeah. Let's broaden it from Native American culture for a minute, and let's lift up other mythological motifs or figures that you think are related, or symbols that are related to this particular archetypal aspect of the psyche. What else would you say?
The Joker is not a Batman.
The Joker in Batman is great. That's great.
Roadrunner and Coyote.
Roadrunner and Coyote, yes. Nasrudin. From what tradition? Sufi tradition. Yes. Hermes from the Greek tradition. And flag that, because I want to use that later when I talk about Victor Turner and liminal and liminoid phenomena as a location for this. Hermes, the god of the threshold. See. Any other mythological figures?
Arlecchino from Commedia dell'arte, magician, harlequin.
Yes. Great. Harlequins, clowns. You see a lot of this stuff if you look at the art of Picasso. You see this figure a lot in Picasso's art. In fact, if you don't understand about the trickster archetype and you look at Picasso's art, you're going to miss a lot of what's in there in terms of insight. Other figures, yes.
Carnival, the Prince of Fools.
Carnival, the Prince of Fools. The whole idea of Carnival, Mardi Gras, and flag this and make sure I get back to it before lunch, and that is anti-structure, the whole concept of anti-structure, which is related to Carnival and these periods of time in which there is a reversal in culture. Anything else? What about Hindu tradition? Hinduism. Think of any trickster figures in Hinduism?
Narada, who plays, acts somewhat like what Angel Gabriel does.
Narada, and who else? Think about major traditions. Think about Krishna. There's much trickster stuff in the mythology of Krishna, especially the child Krishna. But a lot of Krishna sneaking around and having sex with everybody else's wives. That's trickster phenomena. You see this clearly in the Native American. Coyote is always going around, getting his penis, and it goes down. He sends it down under the lake, and extends it over there, and there's this pretty princess over there, and he has it go under the lake. Got her. See, so there's a lot of that there's a lot of that in the Krishna traditions. And actually, if you study Hindu and Indian culture, there's a tremendous amount of this energy that is available there in the culture. There's so much of a sense of play. And the whole idea in Hindu mythology of a god who is represented with lila, play, who's not all that serious. That is this sector operating. The sense that somehow there's something divine about irreverence. Now, Christians don't like this too much. In the Christian tradition, the trickster gets seen as
Judas.
who else? Judas is one. Who else? Satan.
Yeah, but there's also Christ the Fool.
There's Christ the Fool, and there's also this image of, in Godspell, of Christ, the clown figure who becomes that. But Christianity, one of the things we need to talk about briefly, we don't have a lot of time to deal with it, and I've done it in other lectures on evil, the psychology of evil. But Christianity tends to have an archetypal split in it in its concept of evil. And one of the things we might just briefly talk about today is the way in which Jung's understanding that somehow there's got to be a healing of a split between Christ and Satan. While there are some subtleties in Jung's view of evil and so forth, the idea, if you understand that Christianity tends to put the trickster lover on Satan and Christ tends to be in the fullness of, not the liberal Christian myth, but in the fullness of the Christian myth, Christ tends to be seen a lot as a warrior king, Messiah, warrior king. You can see what Jung's talking about here about wholeness. Wholeness being a reunion, and we'll get to this and lay it out for you, a reunion of the trickster lover or magician lover and the warrior king to have wholeness in the psyche. So there's some, I don't like to call that the union of good and evil, because I don't believe that's the way it should be said. Because I view evil as the splitting itself, not the trickster lover. I don't view the trickster lover as evil. I think the split is what is evil. But anyway, so we could go on, and just in this one 2-volume dissertation by Mac Linscott Ricketts, you see the enormity of the complexity of this figure in North American Indian traditions. So this is I want to lift this stuff up in the context of Jungian